sometimes you would be separating an additional 10% from what was remaining. After you took 10% from the remainder, you would take 10% to separate to take to Jerusalem. The first and second year of the cycle. And then the third year, you'd go ahead and you take 10% and you would take it to give it to the poor people. That's called Masa Ani.
Right.
And the Mishnah states, we're on 34, A1, the Mishnah. Shlosha Dvarim. There are three things. Sarach Adam Lomam B'toch Beito, Erev Shabbat Im Chashecha. There are three things that a person needs to say in his house, to the members of his house, whether it's to his wife, whether it's to his children, whoever it might be, on Erev Shabbat, close to dark, meaning to say late in the afternoon, not in the morning. Now, why not? Why late in the afternoon? We know we have a rule that when you have a mitzvah to do, always do it the earliest you could do it. You don't delay the mitzvah. So why over here do we say that the person should ask his members of his family, did they take off the tithes? Did they go ahead and they make the eruv, which we'll discuss soon? Why don't they ask them in the morning? Take care of it first thing in the morning. The answer is, Rashi says, if you mention to the members of the household early in the morning or in the morning, noontime or that type of time, what will happen is people will say, I still have a lot of time to take care of it. Right? You tell someone at 12 o'clock, something that you could do at 3 o'clock. The nature of people is they'll say, I'll do it, I have time. And when you say you have time, what happens is, morning, when time comes, then things are delayed, then you just don't do it. Because I know I have a few hours to do it, so I'll do it later. And then later never comes. So therefore, if you tell the person later in the afternoon, when there's not so much time more for them to do this act of taking off mice or making the eruv, then they'll do it right away, and we won't have that concern. So it's a fascinating idea of human nature, to ensure that people won't miss out on doing the mitzvah that needs to be done. Now, so what are the questions that you ask? The questions are, Isartem, did you separate the maaser to take off the tithes? Now the word maaser is from the word eser. Eser is 10%. So you're not allowed to take off maaser on Shabbat. If you take off maaser on Shabbat, you're fixing the food, making the food usable, so to speak. And that's not, you can't go ahead and do on Shabbat. So we asked the question, did you go ahead and take off the maaser?
So as a Levi, do I have to do the tithe?
Say it again.
As a Levi, do I have to do the tithe?
So then we'd have to look up what we're going to do with the Levi and his. Levi has to take off Trumah. You have to give Trumah to the Kohen. You have to give 10% from what you receive, and whether you have to take off maaser from your own produce, we'll have to look up that. I have to do some homework. Remind me to do some homework. All right, and because if you have fruit in your house, during the weekdays, if you have fruit in your house, produce, you didn't take off maaser. So you'll just take off the maaser and you'll eat it. Just like before you eat, you say bracha. So before you eat, you'll separate the maaser. But you can't separate the maaser on Shabbat. Now, because we're going to see, there are going to be three things that are mentioned here in the Mishnah, is that it's because of the Shabbat coming, you have to do it. For instance, you have to light the candles Erev Shabbat. You don't have to light candles every day of the week. You have to light candles before Shabbat because of the honor of Shabbat. Similarly, if you want to go ahead and travel on Shabbat, let's say you want to walk outside the city, so there's a certain distance a person is allowed to walk outside a city when there's no houses. and that's called Eruv Techumim, and you have to make it a certain type of Eruv, a certain type of, you have to put, let's say, a certain amount of food, let's say morning Adam, put enough for 2 meals, and you put that, let's say, 1900 amot away, whatever, outside the city, and that becomes your place, like your residence, and therefore you could travel another 2000 amot, another 3 to 4,000 feet out from that area. Let's explain. Let's say, let's say on Shabbat you want to go somewhere, and the city, it's not like here, like we're built up. We have houses all along. Morning Asaf. You're in an area in the country somewhere, and there's no houses in a while. So therefore, you're considered outside the city. So you have to leave the city to travel, to walk, just to walk. On Shabbat, there's a restriction that you're only able to walk a certain amount of amot on Shabbat outside a city. Again, like I said, today's day and age, if you want to walk from Lower Manhattan to to Brooklyn, everything is connected, so to speak. Therefore, there's no problem really traveling, walking. I'm not talking about carrying, walking on Shabbat. But let's say you're somewhere where there's no houses, and now you want to walk on Shabbat. So there is, in order for you to walk, to go to, you're limited in how far you can walk unless you do something to extend the ability that you can walk further.
So the idea is you have to get to an area where that's unpopulated. That's how the city ends.
Good morning, Ronnie. Yes, if the city is considered, if there's unpopulated, there's no houses, after a certain amount of space, we have to look into the Allah exactly how much, certain amount of space outside your house, there's no houses, then that means the city has considered ended by your house.
But it has nothing to do with technicalities of where the post office are, because you could have city after city where it's suburb after suburb, there's no break.
Right. It's not about the post office. It's about how many houses are how close are you to the next houses, and if it's considered that the city is ended, then you have, let's say, that you have the ability to walk 2,000 amot, which is anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 feet, outside your city. So if your city is your house, if you're the last, there's no houses after your house for a while, therefore we'll consider your city, that your city ends with your house.
So if you're at a bungalow colony upstate,
If you're a bungalow colony upstate, and if there's adjacent houses near the bungalow colony, so therefore the city is you're still in the city.
but if there's not, then your little colony is.
But if you're not, then your colony might be the end of the city. And therefore, now if you want to walk on Shabbat, how far can you walk? You could walk 2,000 amot. Now, how much is 2,000 amot? 3,000 to 4,000 feet. It's less than a mile. A mile is 5,000 something feet. But let's say let's say you want to travel 4,500 feet outside your city. But 4,500 feet outside your house, let's say, is past the boundary. But you only got, let's say, whether it's you only got we said 2,000. You have 3,000 to 4,000 feet to go, right? Depending how much is the 2,000. It's either 3,000 feet or 4,000 feet. So you have either max 4,000 feet, but the place you need to go is 4,500 feet. The place you need to go is 4,500 feet outside from your house. So what could you do? So the rabbi said, if you go, let's say you go from your house, you go before Shabbat, you take food, let's say amount of food that a person uses for 2 meals of food, and you place that food 1,900 amot. Let's say you place that food, let's say 2,800 feet from your house. Now, because the food is there, that becomes like your residence, the place of your food. And now you get another 2,000. You get a 2,000 amot from that place of your food. So if you put the food at let's say you put the food at 2,800 feet from your house. Now you got another 3,000 or something feet to go because you extended it by making your residence over there. So that gives you a further distance that you could go ahead and walk on Shabbat. So that is the
How do you know
Exactly.
it's gonna be there the next day? The animal might
okay,
be
right,
there.
right. That's a good point. But we hope when Shabbat comes, we'll see. If Shabbat comes, as long as that was your residence when Shabbat comes, it would seem, we'll see about that in the Gemara. But then that is your residence. We'll see about what happens when the Erev gets. We'll see more about that. But obviously, you put it in a way that it should be there that when the Shabbat entered, for sure. When the Shabbat entered, we'll see what about if it gets consumed, what the law will be. When the Shabbat enters, you need to have that has to be the food has to be there. That's for sure. Now, what about post that? We'll have to see more about that.
What if what if you have 2,500 feet and then you come to another area where there's houses?
Because so we have to look at all but it would seem we have to look how they consider all those things. The laws have to be looked at properly. These are good questions, Ralph. But so if anybody is outside in the country area and he wants to walk a far distance on Shabbat, wants to go for a nice walk, they have to look into the law and speak to someone who reviewed all the laws to know exactly how far they could possibly walk or what they need to do before Shabbat. So the Mishnah states, so you would ask the members of the house, Erev Tem, did you place the Eruv? Did you place the food, that spot before the Shabbat? Did you, because it's something you might not have seen. You don't know if the members of the house did it or not. Did they put the food over there? So you would ask them, Erev Tem, did you make the Eruv? Also, there's another Eruv called Eruv Chatzerot, right? Eruv Chatzerot is when we've learned about that in more detail. We had about when you have houses, it's like a bungalow colony, and the bungalow colony runs into, let's say, if there's a bungalow colony running into a courtyard, everybody has bungalows and they share a joint courtyard. And let's say that courtyard, opens into the street. So the concern is that maybe if a person, let's say you have a few houses that share a front courtyard, maybe if you're going to go ahead and if the members of the houses would carry from the houses to the courtyard, which is like a semi-public area for the members of the homes, they might come to carry into the public property. Because people might say, you know what, I carried from the houses into this shared courtyard, which is a little public. So I might come to carry into the what? They might come to carry into real public property. So to ensure that is that we get a little food, a certain amount of food. Good morning, Nathan, from each member of the courtyard, and they go ahead and they place the food into the houses of one of the members of one of these houses. So there's 10 houses, there's one courtyard. So one house with Erev Chatzerot, and we want to go ahead and they put it to one of the people's houses, and therefore it's as if they all live in that house. And therefore, because the fact that they made this Eruv, that would remind them, and that would serve them that you can't just carry into a public property. But this courtyard is not as much public as the fact that we all join together with collecting from each one and putting it to one member's home, as if this courtyard belongs to that home, and therefore we could carry from that home for everybody's, the whole courtyard belongs to that home, therefore we could carry from the houses into the morning Morris, into the courtyard. So that was something else also that needed to be done, Erev Chatzerot, that needed to be done, and therefore that is the, even today's day, we spoke about it, Morning Morris. Today, when a person lives in a co-op, in a building, the hallways are like the courtyard, right? Everybody shares the hallways. The members of the buildings, everyone has an apartment. Their apartment is like their house. all sharing the lobbies. So now to carry from your house, I mean, if there wouldn't be an Eruv in town, right? If a person does not live in a place where there's an Eruv in the town, right? So then there would be an issue to carry from your house to the lobby, because the lobby is similar to that shared, unless they would make an Eruv Chatzerot, but there's also certain laws how to make the if you now if there's a landlord and is renting houses, apartments, and the landlord has furniture or stuff in each and every apartment, so then you would not need, the old landlord would keep a refrigerator, a stove, he'd provide a refrigerator and stove to all the tenants of the building. But today's day and age, a lot of times landlords don't provide anything. It's not, everybody has their own, with the upgrading of things, people have their own stove and own refrigerator. And it's not that the landlord has something in everyone's apartment that comes with empty, just walls. Then you get into this, then there'll be this issue, what do you need to do and how to deal with it. Okay, but that's a separate issue that people need to be aware of people who don't follow, not everyone carries here in Manhattan with the Eruv, good morning. And those people, good morning, Stephen, who don't carry here in Manhattan will have the issue, carrying from their houses, their apartments to the hallways. Okay.
Is that also applied to taking your garbage out?
Yeah, anything carrying anything from your apartment to the hallways would be a problem. If you have no Eruv in town,
Oh, but if there's an Arab in the town,
then you're okay. If you hold from the Eruv. Okay, so the Mishnah states, we're good to see Steve. The Mishnah states there are three things a person needs to say in his house before Shabbat, before dark, late in the afternoon. Did you take off sartem? Did you take off the tithes? Did you separate the tithes for the Levi, for the Levium? The food, the produce, you have to separate tithes. Did you go ahead and eraftim? Did you make the eruv? Whether it's the eruv, good morning. Whether it's the eruv that's needed for if you want to carry from your house to the courtyard on Shabbat, or if it's eruv that you wanted. We spoke about eruv techumim. If you want to walk a certain distance. Not carrying anything, just walking a certain distance. You have to, if you outside the city, our cities, you have a certain distance up to 2,000 amot, to 3 to 4,000 feet outside the city, but you could extend your ability to walk if you place food of 2 meals. If you place it within the 2,000, right within the 2,000 amot. Within the 2,000 amot, then you get an extra 2,000 amot from that spot. So you ask the members of the house, did you do that? Did you take off the maaser? Did you make the eruv? But when it comes to lighting the candles, you don't ask them if you lit the candles, because that's something you could see. You could see whether they lit the candles or not. So therefore,
You can remind them.
what would it be?
Light the candle.
You're talking about insulate the food? No. We're going to see. We'll see what the Mishnah is going to talk about that. We're going to get to that soon. But you don't hear the questions that you ask is you say you don't ask them, did you light the candles? Because that you see. So you have to say to the members of your house, if it gets late in the afternoon, you say to your wife, please light the candles. It's getting late. Because sometimes people need reminders. People can get caught up. I was planning on doing it. I didn't realize how sometimes the wife might not realize how late it got, and therefore you need to go ahead and say something. Halika was in there. So you say to the person, say to your wife, light the candles. Now, why can't you do this on Shabbat? You can't go ahead and let's say maaser. You can't go ahead and take off maaser on Shabbat, because when you take off the maaser on Shabbat, you're like fixing, one idea is because you're like fixing the food, and because it wasn't really to be eaten beforehand, and now you're like fixing it, you're making it usable, and therefore you can't do that on Shabbat. Right. Now the commentary He says, you know, let's see what he says over here. He says you can't make this eruv of, let's say you want to join the houses with the courtyard that everybody's able to carry. You can't do that on Shabbat because it looks like you're making this everybody's house. It's like you're doing a deal um, on Shabbat, and therefore by everybody if you collect the food from each member, and now it makes it that this house becomes a place of, like, this is the residence of everybody in a certain sense. That's looks like some sort of business type of transaction, and you have to do it before Shabbat. So now the Mishnah continues. Safek hashecha. If it's safek hashecha, if let's say it's ben hashmashot, it's after sunset. After sunset, twilight is an interesting. We're on the Mishnah 34, A2, AB, A2, 34, A2. If it's twilight, if it's after sunset, now after sunset, once the sun goes down, it's possible it's Shabbat, right? We treat sunset as if it's Shabbat, both in we're strict on both ends, right? Because we say maybe the Shabbat has come. Maybe it's nighttime. When the sun comes down, it might be night. If it might be night, we can't light any candles once it's night. We can't, so there are certain things we can't do once it's Shabbat, right? So when it's definitely Shabbat, let's say we won't be able to we won't be able to do all these things when it's definitely Shabbat. What about when it's not definitely Shabbat? It's called a safek. Is that clear, Ezra? It's a questionable time. Is it Shabbat or it's not Shabbat? So we know both ends. On Saturday also, even though the sun set, we don't say, okay, sunset, now Shabbat is over. No, we wait until the stars come out till we know that's called definitely dark. So what do you do in this time period? Are there things that you could do after sunset that you can't do when it's dark? Or sunset and dark all the same? We treat it exactly the same? Right, right. We're going to get into that. And correct.
Yeah, I mean, you check all your pockets.
Right. It says chayiv odom lamashmish, because you have to feel your garments before Shabbat to check your garments to make sure that you don't have anything in your pockets before you leave in a place where there is no eruv. Or I would say,
even if you have eruv, you can't take things.
right. If right, that's what I was saying. Even if not, if there's a concern, you might have.
If you don't have an eruv, but if you do have an eruv, you can't take money.
Right, exactly. So you want to check your pockets, especially someone's coat pockets. So usually, if people say if you use the same coat for Shabbat on a weekday, if you use a suit that you use for Shabbat, you don't use a weekday, and you never put things in your suit pockets. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing. So I personally on Shabbat, I know I don't put anything in my pockets on Shabbat. Then I'm afraid I don't want to kind of carry on Shabbat. But then after Shabbat, I might put something in my pockets. I got to check for the following week, because I might put something after Shabbat in my pockets. So here we're talking about twilight. Is that the right word? Ben hashmoshot. It's after sunset, between sunset and definite night. Let's say, what time is sunset tonight around? Guessing sunset is around 4:28, 4:29, right? Sunset today is 4:28. It's very early. That's why I like late Shabbat, because late Shabbat, when you make early, when you have a late Shabbat, let's say in the summer, and you make an early Shabbat, so then even if you run a little late, it's still the regular Shabbat. You're doing fine. See what I'm saying? But these days, you don't have that window. You know what I'm saying? So safek hashecha, safek eina hashecha, ein ma'asrin esavadai. Fruits that you did not take off the tithes, Vadai means here, you definitely, the types were not taken off. You cannot do it on that time. You cannot go ahead and separate the types. You got that, Morris? If already sunset has come, you lost the opportunity of window. You want to eat this food, you can't eat it until you have to wait till after Shabbat. It's good for the diet. You have to wait until you ties the food, until you take off the, then you can go and eat the food. Just like I mentioned earlier, just like in order for us to, no, we're saying sunset is Bein HaShmashot, meaning Bein HaShmashot begins, when is the time called Bein HaShmashot? What is the translation of twilight? Maybe I'm not translating the word twilight properly. When does twilight begin? I thought twilight means
the sun sets with the force.
Right, exactly. That's the translation of Bein HaShmashot. Bein HaShmashot means between. It's between sunset, from after sunset. Oh, right. So there's two meanings that are given. It's between the suns, between the 2 days. Some translate it's between the 2 days. Shemesh there, meaning the Shemesh is like one. Shemesh represents the day. If you want to refer to day, you call it the sun. So that's one interpretation, how to translate it. So it's between this day and the next day. So that is called Bein HaShmashot. Between the days. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation. That's one interpretation. I think the Maharal gives that interpretation. So when you're in between the days and you don't know, is it the next day or it's still the previous day? So Ein Masrin Es Avadai. You can't take off Maser on something that definitely the tithe was not taken off yet. Because we're going to see there's certain produce that you might have in your house that maybe it was taken off, right? Because let's say you bought the produce from an uneducated Jew. So they're called the Am Haaretz. The uneducated Jews in those days, they were careful to take off the truma. Truma is any amount technically, and the average guy gave 2% truma for the Kohen. That's the first thing. Right. So 2% is 1/50th. It's not a large amount, right? Morris 1/50th of the produce. But when you get to the Maaseh, 10% to the Levi, that's a much more, that's 5 times the amount. That's a significant, 5 times 2% is 10%, if my math is right. So therefore, that's a more significant amount. And there was a minority of non-educated Jews that were not careful and did not take off the tithe. The majority took off, even the tithes. But there was a minority that did not. Because of that, the rabbi said, God bless you, if you go in and you buy food from the Amaretz, which he was supposed to take off the Maser, and you don't know if he did it, you separate the Maser, but you could technically keep that Maser for yourself. Because then it's a financial question. Who does this belong to? Belong to the Levi or to me? Right? Because maybe the guy I bought it from actually did separate the Maser. But I have to go in and do the act of separating the Maser when I buy it from Amoritz. So the Mishnah says something that you know the Maser was not taken off. Ein Maser Es Avada. You cannot do that on once it's twilight. You can't. By the way, if a lady did not like the candles, Shabbat candles, and already became twilight, sunset, it's too late. Once it's after sunset, the window is gone. And if a lady's running too late Friday afternoon and she won't be able to light before sunset, then the man in the house will be lighting the candles. Represent her. He also has the mitzvah of lighting the candles. Same thing. A person who's single has to have their own apartment. They light candles. Now, the ein madbilin et hakelim. Let's say you went ahead and the utensil became contaminated. Or you bought a new utensil, right? When you buy a new utensil, you can't use it on Shabbat. You can't use it anytime unless you put it into the mikveh. So some learn this point of this Mishnah is not only on a utensil that actually became contaminated that needs to go to the mikveh, even a container, an item, a utensil that's new, that was bought from a Gentile, when you buy a utensil that's made by a Gentile, and that utensil is used for food purposes, you have to go ahead, you buy a pot, you buy silverware, new glasses, not the glasses that you wear on your eyes, new glasses that you drink from, you have to go ahead and dip it in the mikveh. It has to be dipped completely immersed. No, glass made of even metal has to be dipped for sure. On a Torah level, many say. But even glass, which is a rabbinic, meaning glass is a rabbinic requirement to dip in a mikveh, even glasses. And therefore, you can't even, some say this Mishnah is talking to even new utensils that you bought, they need to be dipped in the mikveh. If you didn't dip it in the mikveh and it came twilight, some say this law also applies to those utensils because you can't use it without the dipping. So therefore, you like making it, you're perfecting them, you like fixing, and you're making something usable that wasn't usable, even though technically there's nothing wrong with the glass. But there's something about the glass that because it wasn't dipped in the mikveh that I can't use it. So therefore, I got to go ahead and what? And I can't dip it once the sun has gone down. And certainly, I don't have to tell you, there's no question about it. You can't light the candles. Then you're already getting into a Torah prohibition, possible violating the Torah. Meaning, if you're dipping a utensil in mikvah on Shabbat on twilight, the only possible violation you might be doing is a rabbinic violation because it looks like fixing something. It's not. Or if I go ahead and I take off the tights on Shabbat on twilight, it's also a rabbinic issue. I might be looks like fixing something, but lighting the candles is a Torah. If it is Shabbat, then I'm doing a violation of the Torah of making a fire on Shabbat. And I definitely don't have to tell you. I definitely don't have to tell you can't light the candles. But it could be perhaps. Why did the Mishnah have to tell me this, which is so obvious? Perhaps it wanted to highlight, but sometimes people in their enthusiasm for Shabbat and an appreciation of lighting the candles, people sometimes might get carried away and rationalize and say, "Oh, it's twilight. Maybe it's not, it's not dark yet." And they might want, maybe the Mishnah wants to go out of its way to point out the obvious, perhaps because there is this other side point that nobody should bend the rules and think and rationalize. Oh, it's not dark yet. Okay, the sun just went down. It's not dark. I'll light the candle. Lighting the candle is such a big deal. I'll go light it. So maybe perhaps the mission wants to say no. Yeah, and I don't have to tell you, but I'm telling you anyways that you can't light the candles once the sun has gone down. Yeah,
18 minutes.
Hour 18 minutes. Like Nathan, very important. Candle lighting, when a calendar says candle lighting time is 4:10, that means it is 18 minutes from candle lighting time until, that means sunset is 18 minutes later. That's what it means. And, I saw in a safe called maybe one of farm that if a lady, let's say, is running late Friday afternoon, if she has to light the candles in her weekday clothing, let her light the candles in her weekday clothing. Because if she's gonna wait till she gets into her proper Shabbat gear, it's gonna be she's playing with getting late. So let her light in a weekday clothing. They remove the mukseh. Ladies don't have too many pockets on their clothing, so they remove the mukseh and light the candles and then change afterwards because you can't play around with getting too close to Shabbat, lighting too close to Shabbat. And also there's another thing called Tosfot Shabbat, that really you're supposed to add time before sunset that you stop doing work. Tosef, however you want to call it, is you're supposed to add time before Shabbat morning. You're supposed to add time, maybe 2 minutes if you can, whatever. Anyways, with clocks are not exactly perfect anyways. So what time you got? AT&T time, Verizon time, sometimes, what are you saying?
The phone clock is accurate.
Okay, very good. But sometimes, so better, it's always better anyways, but there's an idea to add, if you can make it a practice, I would say, try to have it at least 2 minutes before sunset. Try to encourage to stop work. I'm not saying if you're 1 minute before sunset, you can't do an act of work. but it's a good, you know, if you know you before sunset. But it's very good idea to do at least, to stop doing any work at least 2 minutes, at least 2 minutes before sunset.
Yeah, but this is like deja vu. I thought we went over
I'm-
this last year.
Yes.
I remember.
Right, I'm saying there are some people that obviously it's best if you could stop, you wanted to stop doing work, you know, if a person stop work at candlelighting time, that's great. But I'm saying, I'm saying about the man, a lot of men do work after candlelighting time. A lot of men are driving their cars to shul, about candlelighting time, and they arrive to shul 5 minutes after candlelighting time, right? And obviously people shouldn't be playing so close to sunset. But in a situation that a person's playing close to sunset, right, there are some people that play it close. There are those people in life. You know, I'm not recommending that to play it so close, but if you are playing it close to sunset, that's what I'm saying. Try to leave a 2 minute dish before sunset. Don't make that red line, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? Am I being clear? You know, that's what I'm saying. Make that red line for yourself. Now, what the Mishnah says, of a ma'asrinas at mai, you could take off ma'aseh from food that you bought from the uneducated Jew, like we said before, because number one, maybe it already was fixed before Shabbat. Maybe the uneducated Jew took off the maaser. So therefore, maybe you're not really fixing anything, right? And so therefore, the rabbis are going to be lenient over here when it comes to separating maaser from food that might already taken off. Number one, maybe it's already taken off, and number two, even if it wasn't taken off, being that it's twilight and it's a whole possibility of a rabbinic prohibition that I might be violating, the rabbi said, being that most people do take off and it's twilight, you could go ahead and take off the maaser. Orvin. And now the Mishnah says you're allowed to actually make an eruv on twilight, and that's going to ask the question indicated before that it sounds like you can't make an eruv. And we'll see tomorrow more about this Mishnah. I want to wish everyone, next thing is going to talk about Tomnin in a minute. Okay, I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining. We'll have a beautiful prayer, beautiful davening. What'd you say? Yes, we're going to have class on Thursday. Should we have the class at a quarter to 8? Would that be better? 7:45? 45 minutes before the second minyan. Is that good for everybody? Yeah? Thursday, because of Thanksgiving, but the minyan here will be on Sunday schedule, 7:30 and 8:30. So we'll have quarter to 8 class, followed by 8:30 minyan. Okay?
That's good, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
What'd you say?
You're talking about Thursday?
Thursday.
What time is the 7:30? I'll come maybe
The class is going to be 7:45.
5, because most go to 6:30.
No, there will only be 6, 7:30, and 8:30 on Thursday. Okay. March, unless more people have issues with then we could do it at 6:40 for the regular time.
Regular times.
So we have to ask everybody. But let's ask tomorrow.
My
Yeah.
minyan starts at 9 o'clock, so I'm okay.
You're okay. Morris, what were you saying, Morris? What you? I didn't. You mentioned. Okay. So let's take 7:30, 8:30 minutes. It's Thursday and Friday. So we have to talk to everybody with on the group. Maybe we'll have Adam sent to the group. If 6, I think it's up to us to talk again to everybody again, because you can't make it at 7:45.
I'm part of the early minyan.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's be in touch.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, everybody. Take care, everybody. Take care,
Have a good
Seth.
day.
Take care, Ralph. Take care. Bye-bye.